What's going on, guys? Matt with MotoWorks here. And if this is a pain in the butt to you, having to have two keys, one for the ignition and one for your saddlebag, and this one doesn't even work that well. Alrighty, so I have everything laid out here, everything you're going to need. So flathead screwdriver, a number 2 Phillips, a number 1 Phillips, a pick or a very, very small flathead screwdriver will work as well. Torx bits and a ratchet to go with it. Very fine tipped tweezers. Some type of grease. This is a silicone based grease. This works really well on this Sil-Glide here. But just some kind of grease. You're going to want to use the, well, since we're doing the one key system, this is the part number for it. And then just a pencil and some paper. And that's all the stuff you need to get this job done. Now, as the description says, this will work on any of these 28-liter saddlebags that Kawasaki uses. I know they use them on the H2SX. They use them on the Kawasaki Versys 1000 and 650, I believe. Just trying to think, there's the Z1000 uses these. So a bunch of different Kawasaki's use this same saddlebag. And this process is going to work for any of those bikes. So it's all we're doing is we are just keying the new lock that we get in this kit to work with the key that is in the bike currently. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to key the lock, and then we're going to take the lock and we're going to swap out the lock that's in there for the lock that we just freshly keyed. So first thing I got to do is I got to grab the grab the key, make sure it's the ignition key. Again, the previous owner did us a solid and made the other key blue, and I've already done the lock with the black key that he had as well. So we're going to just take the key we have and we're going to key this new lock cylinder to the ignition key. Alrighty, so the kit comes with 2 of these separate lock and special brass inserts here. I don't know what those are called, but I know what I'm going to call them. They're pretty much basically the keyway, and it's the code for your actual key itself. So it comes in 4 different color baggies. So you have a yellow, a green, a red, and a blue baggie. These are the different key codes, if you will. And then the other thing it comes with are these springs here. And this is why the tweezers, or this is why the tweezers come in such good handy. Such good handy? I don't know. This is why the tweezers work really well, because these springs are tiny. So we will take, there's a little plastic cover on the lock cylinder. That's what this is here. So I'm just going to take that cover off. Now this lock cylinder here has a stop on it. So if you look here, you see this little stop here. It is spring loaded. So what this does is it goes into the actual lock housing itself, and this piece compresses while you're installing it, and then when this reaches the bottom part of the lock housing, that springs back out, and that's what actually holds this in place and keeps you from, pulling this out of there when you have the key in. So that always stays in there. That never changes. All we're changing are these 5 different, are 5? Yeah. So there's 5 different positions where we need to put these keyways in the correct pattern. All right, so it's just a game of trial and error. All right, first thing before we get into figuring out what the code is we're going to take these springs, dump them out. This is why I said have a nice white piece of paper. It makes seeing this stuff a lot easier. You don't lose track of it. And then this is where the grease starts to come in handy. So I'm just going to grab a spring. Again, the smaller the tweezers, the easier it is to do this. It does take a steady hand. So I'm just going to take a little dab of grease. I'm going to get it on the spring there. And then there's little holes at the end of this lock cylinder here. I'm just going to put the spring down in there. And then that grease is going to hold that spring in place. That is the importance of the grease. Alright, those are all in. Now we're just going to take the extra springs, pop them back in the bag. In the event that we ever want to do something in the future, at least we have this stuff. And the cool thing about this kit here is it's two separate kits. So for the other lock, I have a whole nother baggie of springs. They give you plenty of this stuff, so don't be upset if you lose one or two springs putting them in, as you get plenty. I think I have another 4 or 5 in that other kit over there, along with those keyways too. So if you lose a keyway or something happens, you get plenty of parts in this kit. Alright, so springs are in. Now what we're going to do, this is where the pencil's going to come in handy, is we're going to figure out what the combination is for this lock. And it's going to consist of these various colors here. Alright, so I'm going to just pick a random color. Now, it's very important when you're finding your colors that you pull from the bag, and if it doesn't work, you put it back in the same bag that you pulled from, because this right here, these are all different. You know, a yellow one is slightly different than a green, red, and blue, and you get the idea. So don't get these colors mixed up. I pulled from the yellow bag. I'm going to try it in here. If it doesn't work, then I'm going to put it back in the yellow bag, and I'm going to pull from another bag. So that's the hardest part of this job, is not getting this stuff mixed up. So what you do is you just put that inside the lock barrel like so, and then it does fight you just a little bit. And you just have to kind of get your key, there you go, clip it in there. Alright, now it should move freely when it's in there. That's moving in and out. Then you just take your key, put your key in the lock, and then you look at your barrel. I'm going to switch over to my phone here for this. Alright, so make sure the key's all the way in. So you want to push it all the way to the bottom. And then if you look at the barrel, you see there at the bottom that part of that keyway is actually sticking out. Let me just focus on that a little better. See on the bottom there, part of that keyway is actually sticking out right there. So what we want to achieve is every keyway except for this one should be flush with the barrel of the barrel. We'll just say that. I'm sure it's not what it's called. You guys can correct me down in the comments. But that is no good. So we're just going to have to put that back in the yellow bag and find another one that works. All right, now these are a little bit tricky to get back out here, but if you get your tweezers underneath the open end on there, you can kind of pry up on it. These are a tight fit, and it's kind of on purpose. If your tweezers don't work, you can use your pick here. So this is where the pick or the little screwdriver comes in handy as well. Just want to get underneath it and pull that out of there. And again, this is why I said don't worry about the springs, because sometimes those springs, when you're pulling these things back out and trying to size everything, those springs can go flying. So can these little keyways. So don't be too discouraged if you lose one or two in the process. Alright, so yellow one did not fit. Now let's try red here. See what we got. Every time before you put this in, you want to make sure that spring didn't go flying, that the spring is still down in there, and it is in there on this. And again, that's where that grease really comes in handy, but always double check and make sure it's in there. If you don't have that spring in there, it can make the key very difficult to get in and out of the bike, or in and out of the lock. So just make sure that it's in there. And again, as a double check, you can push down on that, and as long as it springs back, you know that the spring is still in there. Alright, so I put the red one in now. Put my key in. Now what I'm going to do is switch over to the phone. Alright, so the key is all the way in. And now looking at it, you can see that that keyway sits nice and flush inside there. Alright, now since that fits flush, we know that the red one is the correct one. So all we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom here. We're just going to put an R for red. You just want to keep track of where your keyways are going, because when you do a second one, it makes it so much easier. All right, I've already done that here. I'm not going to show you the whole code because who knows, maybe somebody will try and duplicate my key based off of that. So I'll just give you the R, and I'm going to just finish putting this back together. I mean, I already have the code because I did the other lock, like I said earlier. So I'm just going to follow the code I had, and then I'll show you the finished product when I'm done. So you want to look all the way around and make sure that the pieces you installed are all sitting nice and flush with this lock cylinder here. The only one that won't be is this one at the very end, and like I said, that lot is what actually locks that into place when you put the key in. You'll see that here in a minute. All right, so the key is now coated, or the lock is now coated. Now we have to take the lock out of the bike. All right, now that we have it coated, we're going to take this saddlebag off here. And if you've never taken the saddlebag off, I'll show you how easy it is. It's actually really easy to remove. So you just unlock your saddlebag, lift up on that latch there, and slide it back, straight back. Ah, crap. Pro tip. When removing your saddlebag, 2 hands. Every time. Son of a gun. Alrighty, so now we have the bag off. We'll just open it up. And we'll set this down flat here. Just like that. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing this screw, and then there's 2 screws here, 2 Torx bits, and then 2 Torx bits on the other side over here. And then on the back side of the bag, there is 3 screws. So one there, there, as well as one there. And those are the number 1 Phillips. So I'm just going to take the bag apart now. I'm going to unscrew it at least. Alrighty, so what's actually holding that is on the back side here. This piece is all one piece of tape. So it's actually this tape that's holding that on there so well. So you just got to find a spot like I did there. You want to pry on it, not aggressively, but enough that it kind of breaks that tape seal. And that's kind of where that small screwdriver would come in handy if you just want to pry along the edges of this, and it'll come off that way. But now that we have that off, we can take the actual bag part and move it out of the way. And then we'll just focus all of our attention on this part right here. Alright, so let me put this back together real quick. Pop this into place. So, when you have your key, so this key here is in the unlock position right now. In the unlock position, you can see that we can take our lock and move it up and down. Alright, move that up and down out of the way. We're going to actually remove this plastic bar here out of the way. Just pull it up and out. And now we're going to take the 3 screws that secure that lock onto the lid. So I'm going to unlock that, or I'm going to lock that, I guess, and then I'm going to just remove, there's 3 screws down in there. We have 1, 2, 3 screws down in there. Just going to remove those now. Those are also the #1 Phillips head screw, the really tiny ones. So pretty simple there. And since we're going to be pretty much reinstalling these right away, we can just kind of keep them all in a pile here. And with those 3 screws out, we're just going to lift this part off. This is 2 pieces. You have the cover, plastic cover, and then you have the actual mechanism that works the lever there to lock and unlock the bags. So with the key with that cover off and the mechanism off, we can just push straight down on our lock, and then that pulls it out. Alright, so our barrel's down in here. And to release that, this is where that pick comes in handy. So there's that little tab I was telling you about. That's the tab that locks this into place and keeps this key barrel from coming out of this housing. So we're just going to take our pick and we're going to just push down on that, because again, remember, it's just a spring-loaded thing. And it helps to have your key at this point. Put our key back in. I know I keep taking it out, putting it in. But once you have that in there, push in on that tab till it's flush. You should be able to use your key to slide that out of there. There we go. So I got the key on there. You can slide that out of the housing there. So you can actually see why this key didn't work the best in this lock cylinder. So you see down there how it doesn't quite sit flush. And yes, it is that finicky. These are such tight tolerances that that little bit there will give you trouble when you're trying to open your bag. So there are actually some keyways that are that different, you know, that close. And that's what makes this thing sometimes difficult when you're using this blue key to open these bags. You know, just that little bit there compared to the one we're going to be putting in, which is perfectly smooth. So yes, that little bit will make a difference. So now that we're not using this anymore, we're just going to get rid of it. And what you can do, just like I've done on this other key here, you can just take a little bit of tape, tape that up, and then that'll keep that protected from falling apart. So if somebody wants a set of locks with keys, there you go. Okay, so here's our housing. Now if you look inside there, you could see that it's not the same the whole way around. If you see here, you got a little bit of a ramp. And what that does, this is how you're going to install this new lock in this housing, is you're going to put that tab right there, that guy right there is going to start at the top here, and then you're going to twist it, and as you twist it, this ramped edge here is going to push in on that tab until it completely seats in there, and then you should just be able to push that lock down at that point, and then it wiggle it around, and eventually that'll lock it in place, and then your key will now work with this housing. See, let's get a little bit of grease on there. So just make it a lot easier to go in there. It doesn't take much, just put it around there. That'll help that work in there better. So just a little bit of grease. Throw the cap back on there so I don't squirt this everywhere. Now we're good. I'm just going to take that, start it in there. Once it depresses it, it'll just fall in. I have to work it around a little bit. Try that again. Alright, so we're going to start up here. Push in on that. And you'll feel it kind of push in, and then it's set in there. And then listen for it to click, just like so. And now your key works just like it should. So that's open, that's closed and locked, open, won't come out, closed, locked, boom. So that's all you gotta do, a little bit of patience, and then that'll work. And then as you see on the bottom there, the tab is locked in place, and that's not going anywhere. So now we can put this back into our lid. Now this is only going to fit one way. There's a little notch there, a locator, and then it's got a flat side on the other side. So again, this is only going to fit in one way, and then this goes in from the bottom. So there's a tab that locates it, and then the flat spot is on the other side. Once you got that in, you are good to go. Make sure that that's up and flush, just like so. And now I'm going to put my mechanism back on, and you'll know you got it right when you go to put this on. If it doesn't fit, like this isn't fitting now, then I know I got to put it 180 degrees the other way. Alright, so it's only going to fit two ways, the right way and the wrong way. So that is the right way there. Now that I have that in, I am going to tighten down my screws. Now don't go crazy tightening these screws. It's just plastic. Snug is fine. You don't have to go overboard because these will strip out very easily. I've stripped out screws like this in the past, and it's a pain because eventually that'll wear out and it'll make it difficult to open your bag. So just a little bit of oomph goes a long way on these little tiny screws. Because you got to think, you got a lot of leverage. Alright, so that's on. That's locked in place. As kind of a final run, we'll just make sure that it works. So that's open and that's closed. I can take the key out and I can put the key in the other way, and it works just as smooth both ways. Open, close. You could try this a bunch of different times just to make sure that you got it right, but I'm pretty happy with that right now. I'm going to put this back into the open position because that'll make installing this piece a little easier. So for this piece here, you just want to make sure that it's sitting on that metal tab and that it's latched in where it's supposed to be. So what I'm finding out right now is I'm going to pop that down in there. All right, so did you see that? I don't know if you saw that. So I started up here, I locked in this side first, and then I just slid it back, and now it's locked into that tab there. So when I turn it, let me first lock that so it slides nice and easy. There we go. Open and close. Gotta make sure that I have everything pushed down. It doesn't work great when you don't have the bag together, but once you put the bag together, it'll work a lot better. But there it is. It moves freely, just like it should. And now I can take this lid and I can put it back on the saddlebag. Now, since I didn't touch the back at all with my fingers, which I just say don't touch the back at all, so it retains its stickiness. Since I didn't do that, it should be sticky. If you do find it, you've been touching that a little bit too much, you could probably put a little bit of spray adhesive on there, or maybe even a thin piece of 3M double-sided tape would work as well. But like I said, I didn't touch that, so it should be good to go. It is a lot easier to put this together than it is to take it apart, I can assure you that. Because it literally, like I said, just slides in there. So we're just going to make sure that our latch mechanism is in there where it's supposed to be. And then we're just going to slide this in forward here. Just like that. Like I said, it goes together so smooth that you wouldn't think it would be that difficult to get it apart. But that tape is doing a pretty good job of holding this stuff together. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the screws in the back side of this, and then I'll just hold everything forward. So just the little screws in the back here. Again, we're not going overboard. Same thing with that latch mechanism. We're not going to go overboard here because you strip these out and that's a bad day. All right, that locks, that locks. Let's go put it back on the bike. All right, so just gonna slap her back on the bike here real quick. Push that in, lock it, boom. Key works, beautiful. So we got our ignition key, put it in. Unlock, unlock, and that thing works just like butter, just like it should. And like I said, I can put it in this way, that way, and it works perfectly either way. I install the key, and it also still comes up here. And turns on the ignition. Alright guys, so that's how you install the one key system. It is a little bit involved, and you know, if you watch this video and you're still thinking to yourself, maybe that's a bit above my skill set, that's perfectly fine. The Kawasaki dealerships would not have a problem doing this. It is a simple job for them. I mean, if you take your time, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to get something like this done. It took me probably about 45 minutes total to do both bags. It took me a little bit longer on this one because of recording. But it's a job I'd do again, and I'll probably have to do it again for this one since I decided to spike this one on the ground. Always use two hands when you're taking your bags off. lesson learned. Don't try and record yourself taking the bag off. But oh well. I mean, that's stuff that happens. What am I gonna do? I mean, but that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Hopefully it was helpful. If it was helpful, drop a thumbs up in the proper location, and any comments you feel you want to leave, anything else you'd like to see on the H2, just let me know. But we'll see you in the next video, guys. I'm Matt. This is MotoWorks. Take it easy.